Good morning, folks. Welcome to another day at Tappenoff Farm. And Rosa and I are out in the market garden today, and we're preparing a bed to be planted with some calabrese transplants, some broccoli transplants. You can see Rosa behind me is just starting to clean up a section of the bed. This is a bed in plot 6, which has been our main brassica rotation this year. There's a third of a bed of radishes, and above that the rest of the bed was red Russian kale, which was for baby leaf salads. And that kale's just got a bit old now. It's a bit too large and starting to look a bit weathered, so we're going to remove it. And in the past, what we would have done when we're getting ready to clean up a bed is we would pull the old crop out, roots and all, and then either use our BCS and tiller to till the soil, or broad fork and rake, preparing the soil to either accept seed or transplants. But this year we're making a really dedicated decision to try and reduce our tillage, but also reduce the removal of organic matter from the soil. And so we're deciding that we want to experiment more with leaving the roots of the previous crop in the ground to act as a food source for the microbes and soil organisms internally. So with the red Russian kale, our plan today is to cut the crop right down to just below soil level, leaving that root ball in the ground to feed the microbes and the worms. And then we're going to bring in a large amount of compost to apply to the top surface. We are hesitant not to use landscape fabric because we're certain that our compost is maybe a bit weedy. So we're going to put landscape fabric down as well. That'll just ensure that we don't get any weeds coming up, and also the red Russian kale, if we haven't killed it off properly, it will stop that from growing. And then we're going to plant our calabrese transplants straight into that. So over time we'll start building up a lot of great organic matter in the soil, leaving the roots of the previous crop and adding as much compost as we can. And hopefully we'll really reduce the need for tillage and reduce the need for adding compost as much, with the previous crop's roots acting as the organic matter that's needed. And we've got a salad bed over in plot 1 that's gone to flower now. So we're going to experiment with these two beds today. So I hope that's of interest to you guys out there. Thank you to all our Patreons for supporting us. I hope you're enjoying the content, getting to see these behind the scenes clips that don't make it into our farm vlogs. Your support really helps us make our farm vlogs for YouTube and supports us as farmers remotely, which is very much appreciated. So thank you again. Tell us what you've been doing up to this point.
Sure. So I've just been weeding out the last of what was a radish bed. We actually pulled that for our first box. It was a really useful crop to have to fill our first box early in the season. So I've just weeded that, and now I've come on to where we've got what was baby red Russian kale. So what we've decided to do is cut these down basically right to the bottom of the stalk, leaving in the roots. This means we've got really nice actually feed for our animals. Ideally I think I would have cut this a little bit lower, however the ground's quite bumpy, so it's quite hard to get an even cut, but we're actually going to bring in quite a lot of compost, so these will be covered up. And also this, we're not direct seeding into this bed or anything. We've got plug transplants of calabrese. So we're just going to be putting a thick layer of compost on and then bringing in some landscape fabric and just planting the calabrese into that. So it shouldn't really be a problem. But if we were direct sowing into this, I think we would really try and cut it as low as possible so that it wouldn't, the bottom of the stalks wouldn't come up into and get in the way of the seeder. It might take a wee while, but we are getting extra out of doing it this way. Aside from the health of the soil, we're getting a crop to feed to our animals. Yeah, this is the first time of actually doing this for us, so we're just going to experiment with a few different tools, see how long it takes us, and yeah, hopefully keep improving our method.
Alright, that's the bed cleared of the red Russian kale. It was just a small section here, and yeah, so we've left the roots behind. We've removed most of the leaves. Sometimes you could leave the leaves on the bed to kind of break down in situ as a compost, but in this case we thought it was just going to be too much matter that would be sitting on top. We think it would take quite a long time to break down, and also it's better used as a feed source for the chickens and the goats. The root balls that have left, that's what's going to do the real magic. As they start decomposing, that's going to attract a lot more worms to feed on the roots, a lot more microbes, and that's going to bring their own magic quality to the soil for us. So Rose has just headed off to the compost heap to get a couple of wheelbarrow loads of compost, so we can just amp up the organic matter through application of compost. The roots themselves of the previous crop will add a lot of organic matter to the soil, but this is going to act as a light excluding mulch, just to reduce the possibility of the red Russian kale growing back.
So I'm just giving this compost a bit of a soaking, quite a lot of water on it because it was already quite dry compost and the soil felt a bit dry as well. So we thought we'd just water it in, and then we'll plant the calabrese and then probably water again just to give them a really good start. Also, the calabrese that we're planting have been sitting in their tray a little bit too long, so I think they're quite dry as well. But yeah, I think actually the compost being quite dry made it a lot easier for James to break it up and spread it. Because we brought quite a few wheelbarrow fulls of compost up here, we've managed to put it on quite thick, and that's really meant that it can probably act as quite a good weed suppressant. So we've decided not to go with the landscape fabric. A, because that saves time, B, because we've had quite a lot of slug troubles, and although I'm sure this nice thick composty mulch will be habitat for them as well, I think the fabric really adds to that because it's a real great place for them to hide. So we're not going to put that down. We do know that there's going to be some weed seeds germinating in our compost, but actually they tend to not be as bad as the kind of other weeds that come up when you till and stuff. They seem to just pull out quite easily. And because this bed is on the edge of our netting, it'll be quite easy for us to tend to a little bit. So we're going to try that, and we'll keep you posted on whether it works or not.
The other possible downside is that if we haven't managed to cut the kale low enough, that it might just kind of regrow with this lovely application of compost. But again, we'll see, and we'll learn from that in the future. If that is a problem, then we'll resort to using landscape fabric, or have a longer period before turning over a bed and replanting. We could turn over the bed, cover this with a silage sheet, and allow that to kill off any weed seeds present in the compost, and also kill off the red Russian kale by excluding the light.
I mean, if it doesn't grow as quickly as the calabrese, and the calabrese get to a good size before it starts to sprout up, I guess it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, is that intercropping maybe?
Okay, so just finished planting out the calabrese. Before planting them, just rolled the bed with this kind of lawn roller. That really just helps to flatten out and also maybe slightly incorporate the compost into the top layer of the soil. And then just marked out the 2 lines across the bed using some twine and planted along them basically. And it's the exact same spacing as we do with our landscape fabric. There was a slight there's slight difficulty almost in making sure there was good root contact between the plug plants and the compost, because it was such a thick layer of compost, you know, it wasn't like a super fine soil, but they were kind of half buried in the soil, half buried in the compost. Took a little bit more time, but I think they'll be really well nourished, so that'll be nice for them. And now just giving them really good water in, because again everything was quite dry, and going and put some blue hoops in, and then just going to pull the mesh over, and then hopefully some lovely calabrese will grow if the slugs don't get there first.